This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
Happy Friday. It's December 26th, the day after Christmas. I'm Catherine Sweeney. We have a holiday tradition at the Nashvillager podcast. On these few days in late December and early January, where time doesn't quite feel real, we look back over some of WPLN's best work of the year. I signed up to talk about a story that I found deeply moving, but like most of my colleague Paige Pfleger's work, it's also deeply unsettling and disturbing. I apologize in advance for that. Paige has written several in-depth investigations about how Tennessee has failed to protect victims of domestic violence. Several of them focus on guns and how the state fails to remove them from people who are legally barred from owning weapons. But this story was something a bit more complex: parole practices. Specifically, the way a seemingly innocuous policy has given abusers opportunities to commit murder. It takes someone with a profound understanding of the system to break this story down. The story treats the family members with dignity. Paige can talk with real people about the worst days of their lives with compassion and clarity, something I still find terrifying after a decade in the business. This is true of all Paige's work, but I chose this story specifically because of her dogged reporting. To track down so many people who were involved in this case, including the specific parole officer working it, was especially impressive to me. Here's the story.
Probation officers with the Tennessee Department of Correction are tasked with monitoring offenders in the community, to check in with them in person, search their homes for prohibited drugs or guns. In her latest investigation with ProPublica, WPLN's criminal justice reporter Paige Pfleger uncovered a dangerous gap in that probation supervision that has deadly consequences for domestic violence victims. And a warning for our listeners, this story, which is more than 10 minutes long, describes allegations of repeated domestic violence and murder.
14-year-old Chloe Peebles sits in the living room of her grandma's house, holding a photo album on her lap. It's bright pink and glitzy, covered in sparkles.
What does the front say?
She got this made for me.
Chloe's journey.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom made that?
Mm-hmm. Before she passed away.
The photos show little Chloe at the water park, at her 6th birthday, and in nearly every photo next to her, smiling this huge smile, is her mom, Temptress Peebles.
Yeah.
So you guys were really close.
Real close. That was my first best friend and my only best friend.
Chloe holds tight to these memories. Her mom died when she was just 8 years old. She was there the day her mom was shot and killed, October 17th, 2019. They were outside their apartment in North Nashville. She remembers seeing her mom's ex-boyfriend, Brandon Horton, with a gun.
I tried to hug him. I was like, no, don't do that. So I tried to hug him and he pushed me away.
And then, gunshots.
It was just like you could see it in slow motion. The gunshots, like 2 days after she died, I was still having nightmares. Gunshots, I wake up from hearing gunshots in my head. Like I couldn't sleep for days. It is like all I could do is thinking about what I'm gonna do now, or what am I gonna do without her?
Peebles bled to death in the street, while Chloe tried to dial 911. Horton is awaiting trial on charges of killing Peebles. He and his lawyer declined to comment for this story. Over nearly 3 years, WPLN and ProPublica have examined hundreds of domestic violence gun homicides like Peebles across the state. We wanted to understand how often those crimes were committed by someone who never should have had access to a gun. What we found is that in Tennessee's 5 biggest cities, roughly 1 in every 4 domestic violence gun homicide victims was allegedly killed by someone who was legally barred from having a firearm because of their criminal history. And we identified 16 cases where the offender had an additional layer of oversight. The alleged shooters were under supervision by state probation officers with Tennessee's Department of Correction at the time of the crime. Tennessee's probation officers are in close contact with high-risk offenders and can search homes for prohibited weapons without a warrant if they have reasonable suspicion. And probation officers have to request a warrant for the offender's arrest if they commit a new crime. But until that warrant is served by police, all in-person supervision stops. That pause can be for a few days, or in other cases, it can stretch for months or even over a year. Between 2019 and 2022, WPLN and ProPublica found at least 6 people, including Temptress Peebles, were shot to death during that gap in oversight. Her mom, Karen, says it might have cost her daughter her life.
The system did her wrong. If the police department had did their job and that probation officer did theirs, I think it could have been prevented.
It could have been prevented, she says. People's friends and family called her Chippy because she had a high, sing-songy voice like a chipmunk. Almost every night, Peoples talked to her mom on the phone, and she never missed a Sunday dinner. She started dating Horton around 2018. She was hesitant, her cousin, Princess Pinkston, said, in part because of his criminal history. Horton had just started 10 years of supervised probation after he pleaded guilty to facilitation of second-degree murder in a robbery where a man was shot and killed.
Even when she saw the red flags, she would just try anything in her power to try to make him better. She felt like she could save everybody. She can help everyone.
The probation department classified Horton as a high-risk, violent probationer, which meant that every month, his probation officer was required to see him face-to-face 3 times, conduct a home visit, and check to make sure he hadn't been arrested. Horton was assigned to the busy Nashville probation office, coming under the supervision of probation officer Derek Finch.
They want you to have all this rapport, come on in, Bill, sit down. How's it going with the wife and kids? They want all that, but who's got time for that?
Finch had been on the job for a little more than a year at the time and says at one point he was juggling more than 100 offenders in his caseload. Records show the department fired him in 2024 for reporting that he conducted a home visit with an offender who was in custody at that time. Finch said he just misremembered.
I got let go because I couldn't keep up with the caseload anymore.
During the time he monitored Horton, Finch requested multiple probation violation warrants for his arrest. The first time was after an incident on January 12th, 2019. In a court document, Peebles alleged that Horton had gone on Facebook Live and said he would kill her before he saw her with another man. He called her, showed up at her house, blocked her car in with his. They argued. He punched her twice in the head. She ran to her car to escape him, she wrote in a court document, and he tore the wipers off of her car and used them to strike the glass as she cowered inside. Metro Nashville Police Department filed a domestic assault charge against Horton for the incident. MMPD arrested him, searched his home for weapons, according to probation records. He paid a bond to get out of jail while awaiting his court date. Finch requested that probation violation warrant, a judge signed it, and then police arrested Horton again days later. But at a court hearing, Peebles failed to appear, and the case was dismissed. Her mom said she didn't show up because she was afraid, and that Horton had threatened her if she pursued charges.
The victim, more frequently than not, is the evidence.
Christina Johnson is a domestic violence prosecutor with the Nashville District Attorney's Office. She says what happened in this case is common.
If the evidence isn't there, we have no choice. We can't go forward.
Once that assault charge against Horton was dropped, the probation violation that was based on those charges was also dismissed. Horton remained in the community under Finch's supervision. And it didn't take long before the process started all over again, after Horton was arrested with a stolen gun in late January. Despite Horton's status as a high-risk offender, multiple arrests in a month, and his possession of a prohibited firearm, Judge Jennifer Smith returned Horton to supervision instead of incarcerating him. In a statement to WPLN, Smith said she cannot comment on previous decisions. But Finch said he saw multiple offenders violate probation with few consequences.
A lot of these guys, they just keep going in and out. The court wants to give this guy every opportunity to do the right thing. But at some point, you have to draw the line.
That revolving door allowed Horton to return to the street again. The next incident would place him in TDOC's supervision gap. It was a stormy night in July 2019 when Peebles was in her bedroom of her apartment. She heard a loud boom at the back door. She got up, she wrote in a court document, and saw Brandon Horton with a gun. She ran out of the apartment and hid by climbing up a tree. When police arrived, they couldn't find Horton. Police charged him with felon in possession of a weapon and aggravated assault. And for the third time in less than a year, Finch requested and was granted a probation violation warrant for Horton's arrest. Then, as is spelled out in TDOC's Standards of Supervision, Finch stopped supervising Horton in person until police could arrest him. In the past, that warrant was served in a matter of days. This time, it would take 3 months. And during that time, all that was required of Finch was a once-a-month check for arrests in a computer system. TDOC declined to make any probation officials available for this story. In a statement, the department said that supervision remains active for offenders who have warrants, but the objective changes. Instead of ensuring that they're following the rules, probation officers share information with law enforcement to help them with the arrest. The spokesperson confirmed that there is no in-person supervision during that time. Julia Weber, an expert on probation and domestic violence, says it's vital that law enforcement serves warrants in these cases quickly.
And it's not unusual because of resources, training, and protocol that law enforcement decides we'll just serve this when we pull someone over. When I hear that, I think what I tell communities is we have to recognize how dangerous a decision that is.
In the 6 cases of domestic violence homicide that occurred during this supervision gap, WPLN and ProPublica found the time between when a warrant was issued and when police made an arrest stretched from as few as 9 days to as many as 425 days. The victims were all young Black moms. One was a cheerleading coach and a mom of 2. Another was shot while her 2-year-old daughter lay on the bed nearby. In a third case, a mother of 3 was found in a creek days before Christmas with a purple domestic violence bracelet around her wrist. Their deaths left 12 children without their mothers. In her final days, records show that Peebles was increasingly aware of how much danger she was in. On October 7th, she called the probation department and asked if Horton could be served his warrant at an upcoming court date. The manager said she would try and help. October 8th, Horton failed to show up at court. October 9th, MMPD tried to serve Horton's July violation warrant, their only documented attempt, but no one answered the door. When asked why it took so long, MMPD said that wanted people like Horton can be evasive and hard to find. October 11th, Peebles called probation again to say that Horton had failed to appear in court because he, quote, spoke to Officer Finch and was told he would be taken into custody at that time on his warrant. The probation file reads. The manager noted that Peebles was upset and that Horton was threatening to hurt her. Finch denies warning Horton that he would be arrested.
Everything that could have been done was done from our end. Once that warrant is filed, there is nothing else that we can do.
And just 6 days after Peebles' final call to the probation department on October 17th, police say Horton waited for her outside of her apartment. Chloe had forgotten her phone in the kitchen, so they went back to get it. Moments later, Horton allegedly shot and killed Peebles in front of her daughter. Chloe lives with her grandma now, sleeping in her mom's childhood bedroom to feel closer to her. She's starting to fully understand the ways that the system did not protect her mom from Horton. But the 14-year-old does not place the blame at the feet of probation or police or even judges. Instead,
I always felt like her death was on me. If we would never went back to that house to get my phone, or I would never left my phone, maybe she would have still been here.
Paige Pfleger, WPLN News.
Thank you for listening. I'm Catherine Sweeney. We at WPLN are wishing you and yours the best going into the new year. We'll be back Monday.